All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever's going on in your world. Today is going to be a day of another motor swap. Just real briefly, the white Jeep we had, the white Cherokee we had, was involved in an accident this summer. We got hit by somebody texting and driving, totaled it out, bent the frame, but the motor, transmission, transfer case was still good in that one, so held on to it. Found this Jeep here and was able to swap all that out. This one in particular, when I bought it, had a good motor, just needed a transmission. So I swapped everything out of the white Jeep, put it into this one, took the motor out of here. It's sitting over there on the side. While I was on Marketplace recently, I came across a Cherokee that had a bad motor, rod knocking. Went and looked at it, seemed like it was in decent shape, so went ahead, picked it up because I got it real cheap since it had the bad motor. The guy just wanted to get it out of his yard and drug it home. So it's sitting here. We're going to take a look at it, and then today we're going to swap the motor on that. Okay, so here you see the motor that came out of the gray Jeep. Supposedly runs fine, everything like that. So now here's the green Jeep that I just picked up. Look at that. It looks pretty decent shape, right? Overall, it's okay. It's got the usual rust, got a little bit more rust underneath than the gray one does. But overall, it's in decent shape, and I think clean up really nice. Get a running motor in it, and then turn out to be a nice Jeep. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm at least going to get it running. And so before I start it up, just so you can hear the knock, the two things I'm going to have to deal with. One is the emissions issue. Changing that out, which shouldn't be too big a deal other than getting the bolts out of the manifold. Then this whole air conditioning setup. So you can see he disconnected this line. He's just got, this is not the compressor that belongs in there. He just threw something in there to fill the void so he could run that belt on there. So I'm going to strip the compressor off the white Jeep, put that in here, probably change out some of the evaporator and all that stuff. So again, not a major deal, but just something else I have to deal with. So let me start it up real quick and run it for a minute so you can hear the lovely knock it has. So the guy that had, oh, hey baby. The guy that had this Jeep was quite the character. You heard that knock, it sounds pretty rough. When I went to pick it up, he kind of laughed at me because we brought a trailer to bring it home. It's probably 120 miles from our house. He was telling me he would have just drove it. I didn't want to take the chance of getting stuck somewhere in between there and home. And he was telling me how he drove it to work, which was some 30 miles away from his house or whatever. So, I don't know. More power to him, I guess. I would rather put it on the trailer than hitchhike, I guess, is my thoughts. But anyways, we're going to take this motor out, see how far we can get today. All right, so here's our update. I don't know who we is, me and the shop inspector, I guess, and she's been sleeping pretty much the whole time. But anyways, got the top end apart, ready to come out. Next step is to get underneath and take the starter out, loosen the transmission off, and any little, there's a couple little clips under there and stuff like that just have to loosen up. So probably the worst part, and the exhaust, get the exhaust loose. Probably the worst part of the whole job, but it is what it is. Been fighting it for the last few hours. Don't even want to know what was all going on, but I'll update you in a few minutes. think she's ready to come out, so we're gonna get it all hooked up. It's actually broke free from the transmission already, so hopefully it'll just pop right out of there. Look at these two right here. Who would ever thought these two could be so much trouble? These are the two bolts that were on top of the belt housing up by the firewall. The first one on the driver's side, I was able to get a bunch of extensions together and reach up in there and get this one off. It took a while. I'm not trying to play it down what a pain in the ass it was, but this one here on the passenger side, I spent hours and hours dropping tools, picking up tools, watching videos how other people did it. And is this one bolt that took the majority of this project. It actually has me wondering whether or not it would be easier just to take the entire drivetrain out like I did on the other Jeep and take everything apart versus how I've done it here, just trying to take the motor out and then reattach it to the transmission in the engine bay. So anyways, spent a lot of hours, ended up having to remove the motor mounts, drop the motor down, was able to finally reach it after several more attempts, dropping things, picking things up, and trying to reach up in there, and got it out. So after that, it was a success, so called it a night. Now today, we're going to get back at it, and I'm going to have to strip off the, let me swing this over here. Okay, so you see they took out the O2 sensors here on this one, even though it only had one catalytic converter down near the rear end. So on my motor that's going in, it has the two catalytic converters right here. So I'm just going to cap, on that motor, cap the exhaust manifold the same way they did this here. Okay, so here you go. You can see the difference now, right? This is what I was talking about with the O2 sensors and the catalytic converters. Well, I don't know if you caught that before I did, but obviously I wasn't paying attention. The dowel rods were not in there, in the motor block or in the transmission. The plate even fell on the ground. I just didn't pay attention to that because I thought that was the dust cover, the inspection plate for on the bottom part of the transmission. So yeah, I didn't pay attention, put the motor in, got it all lined up. Was getting really close to putting it up against the transmission, was thinking I was doing great. Then I realized what happened. So I had the pleasure of pulling the motor back out, putting it on the ground, and now we're going to put these in and try it again. So take two. Pulling the motor back out and then putting these things in. Hopefully they'll just tap in nice for me, and then we can get the motor back up there. So let me get this done and see what happens here. Okay, so it's been a couple days since I've been able to work on this, but I'm going to try to get back at it tonight. Got everything underneath all buttoned up, so we're ready to go there. Just need to wire the top, put in the air conditioning, get the grill in, and the radiator and stuff like that. All right, got the front end all taken care of, or we got the engine bay all taken care of. I'm going to try to start it, see what it does, and then wish me luck here. So I'm going to check some connections, check some fuses. I'm going to maybe get some fuel, put it in there because the gas gauge is showing empty, and try it again. So I'll be back. All right, so we had our first successful startup. I ended up finding a ground wire that was loose, that was causing the problems. I couldn't figure out, why some of the gauges weren't working right and things like that. So I knew it had to be something simple, and ended up being a ground wire. So got it to fire up. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Let's give you guys a listen. So I would say for our first test, we're doing all right. Unfortunately, this is where I'm gonna have to quit tonight, but we're making good progress, and we have fire. Well, ignition. We have ignition. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. We don't want too much fire. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it a night now, and hopefully next day or so when I can get back out here, actually get it out on the road and take it for a test drive. So stay tuned. Okay, you can see we got it all back together and running now. Only had one minor hiccup when we were warming up the engine at the house. It just wasn't cooling down enough, so I ended up replacing the radiator, which seemed to take care of that problem. Brought for a test drive today, shaking things down, and so far so good, no problems. So yeah, it's been a fun project. I realize this is not the world's most elaborate, fantastic project on the planet. Take a working motor, or what we were told was a working motor, put it in here and get it running, but it has been fun. It's actually something I've been thinking about doing, talking to somebody else about, like going to a junkyard, grabbing a motor, finding a vehicle and put it in here, and putting it in another vehicle. So it's kind of what we've done here. And hopefully if it's something you're thinking about doing and wondering how hard, easy it is, to give you some idea of what the task might be, and encourage you to do it a little bit. So the plans for this thing are to keep tweaking it and doing things. There's big rust on the side. All the interior needs to be cleaned out and things like that. We're kind of taking pieces off the other white Jeep and putting it in here. And then finally, my son and I were talking about this today on our little test drive, that originally we were going to name the gray Jeep Franken Jeep, but this one seems more appropriate. So we're going to call this one the Franken Jeep from now on. Put something in the comments below what you think about all these XJs, and hopefully you subscribe if you're still watching this and follow along with all these different XJ projects and other things we got going on in the channel. And until the next one, we'll see ya.